Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give people a few more minutes to get online. While we are waiting, I would love to throw in the chat where you're calling in from, where you're listening, and what you're working on so that we can help tailor this next hour to you and your needs. Also, I should introduce myself. I am Rachel Horn with the Filecoin team, and I'm really excited that you're all here today. So thanks for joining. Thanks for logging on. Let's just give people a few more minutes. Hello to Toronto. Ildi, it's good to see you. David in Nashville, working on a team to build decentralized data hub for individuals. That's great. Thanks for joining us. All right, well, I'm going to kick us off as people join. A very big thank you to everyone for dialing in for this and for watching on the YouTube live stream and the Twitter live stream. We are so happy that you're here. We're happy that you're joining us for this masterclass series. This is number 2 in the series. And we are so lucky to have the team over at Fleek joining us for this second session. The idea behind these sessions is really to help you jumpstart your projects, the tools and apps that you're building on the Filecoin network. As we gear up for mainnet launch, we want this really robust, amazing ecosystem of tools and ideas and services on the network to build a healthy network. So thanks for being here. Thanks for learning with us. Today, we are really lucky to have Samuele Agostinelli, from the Filecoin team here. He's from the Fleek team here. He's a front-end developer with Fleek, and he's going to show us how to use Space Daemon to build decentralized apps. Now, for a long time, Fleek has been this amazing platform for building fast and modern sites and apps on IPFS. And now with Space Daemon integration, you can build on Filecoin. So feel free to ask questions in the chat in real time. We really want this hour to be as productive as possible. And we'll, of course, put the recording up on YouTube, on our Filecoin YouTube channel when the session is over, so you can refer back to it. But this is meant to be an interactive session. And so with that, I turn it over to Samuele. Thanks, Samuele.
Hello, everybody. Can you see me?
We can see your background, but we can't see you in the big screen. Maybe
I can see you, Samuele. I think we're good to go.
Awesome. So it's Samuele from Fleek. So welcome to the Space Master Class. So in this master class, we're going to learn how to get started using the Space Daemon. And it's going to be a complete introduction to space from just what it is up to more technical details. So here on the agenda, we're going to start with the slides. It's going to be the first part. It's going to be, we're going to explain like what is the Space Daemon, why we created it. And by the end of the slides, you're going to have a better idea if the Space Daemon is good for your project. And then it's going to be part 2. It's going to be a technical introduction. We're going to learn how to set up the daemon, how to interact with it using our space client. And then the third part, this is completely new that we added recently. It's a Filecoin integration. So I'm going to introduce you to Filecoin using the Space Daemon. So it's going to be pretty interesting. So first of all, I just want to introduce you about what is Fleek and how does space fit in this. So at Fleek is the name of the company. And we have a few products that are pretty well known, as Rachel mentioned earlier. We have Fleek hosting, which is a way for developers to host their web applications on IPFS. And of course, it has a simple workflow, and a lot of people like it. And then we have the Fleek storage, the product we did after that, which is to upload files on IPFS so that web apps can use them, like images and videos and stuff like that. And now in 10, the third product, which is what I'm going to talk today, is the Space Daemon. And more generally, the space umbrella term is what we'll talk about. So first of all, why did we create the Space Daemon? What problem does it solve? Well, we know that right now there's a problem with user data. For example, there's big companies that in their servers, they have access to user data, and pretty much they're selling it to other companies. And as a user, users do not like that. And of course, then there's also government censorship, like TikTok that was banned recently. And thirdly, the hackers accessing centralized data sources. Here on the image, we see kind of making fun of Twitter, because recently Twitter had a big hack where very big names like Barack Obama, I think Biden, Kanye West, and a lot of celebrities got hacked. And it was really like a big deal. And it really highlighted that there is a problem with user data, and that when they are in these centralized data sources, they are easily taken advantage of. So that's the problem. And now the solution is Space. That's why we created it. Now, the value proposition to users is that we bring privacy through encryption and data ownership, which means that all their data is going to be encrypted, and they're going to be the owner of the keys to decrypt this data. And so all these problems that we mentioned previously are solved through that. And finally, censorship resistance to peer-to-peer technologies, such as IPFS and Filecoin. So Space uses IPFS very heavily, and also Filecoin, like I'm going to show you later in this presentation. And of course, they are peer-to-peer technologies, which means that they have no central point of failure, which means that a lot of the problem that comes from like the server client architecture are solved by that. Now, our Space brings privacy, because we said previously that it's a big value proposition that Space brings to anyone building apps on top of the Space Daemon. So fundamentally, the Space Daemon takes your files and encrypts them and pushes them on IPFS. Now, of course, since they are encrypted, we need the keys to unencrypt, to decrypt. And these keys are on the local machine of the user, which runs an instance of the Space Daemon. So in effect, only the user in his local machine is the owner of those keys and can then decrypt the files. Also here, we says that the user controls who he wants to share data with sharing or collaborating. That's because on the Space Daemon, we have a bunch of features for sharing files in a private manner using public key cryptography. And that allows people to kind of share with some very specific individuals. And we have also an identity management system that goes with that, so that we can simplify this process. Now, I want to touch upon really quick the difference between the Space Daemon and the Space app. Because recently, like a few weeks ago, we made an announcement on our Twitter and through a blog post that at Fleek, we are working on a new Space application. And so I just want to make sure that we understand the difference between the two and how it fits. So the Space app is a desktop application developed at Fleek using the Space Daemon. And it's meant to be kind of like Dropbox and Google Drive, but better, because we're going to fix the problems with privacy and censorship. And now the Space Daemon is the part on which it is built on. So it's what powers the Space app. And what is really cool about the Space Daemon is that we open source it, which means that anyone can build an app like the Space app or different. And you can profit from the same functionality. And the Space app can then serve as a good example of the kind of stuff that you can build, because it's going to be a enterprise style app, commercial app. So if you want to make a commercial application like the upcoming Space app, you can do it with the Space Daemon. And in this next hour, on the technical part, I'm going to show you how we can get started with that. So that's really interesting. It's an example of what you can build. Now, I want to mention the Filecoin integration, because as I said previously, it's a new thing that we added to the Space Daemon. So the Space Daemon is out since like a long time ago, like a few months, but we always are adding more stuff to it. And as a first step, we did a Filecoin integration that we're going to show off today. And this Filecoin integration comes in the form of the Powergate. So there's this company in the field, textile, that does a lot of very good tooling for developers. And one of them is the Powergate, which is a way to interact with the Filecoin system. It comes bundled with an IPFS node and a Lotus client. The Lotus client is what connects to Filecoin. And a nice API, nice library client that you can use to communicate with that instance. And it comes bundled in the Space Daemon. Now, why that's very interesting is because since the Space Daemon encrypts data, it can be used to encrypt data before it gets uploaded to Filecoin. That's a really big use case, because when you use Filecoin, you always need to encrypt before you upload, or else anyone can look at the data. Like the stuff that you upload on Filecoin is not private. The miner that is going to hold your file, he can open the file and look into it. So it's an important aspect of uploading to Filecoin. And I want to say it's newly implemented, so there's going to be some bugs and stuff like that. But I'm going to explain it when we go over that. Now, the Filecoin, I'm going to show you a bit the stack, the stuff that is inside the daemon, and the stuff that on the future we will integrate in the daemon. So here on the bottom left, we got the Filecoin. So that's a pillar of our vision for the Space Daemon. Here we got Textile, with it's the creators of the Powergate, but they also do threads and buckets, which are kind of like databases, file storage on IPFS. And of course, there's IPFS, because on the Space Daemon, we heavily use IPFS. Now here we have Ceramic, Handshake, and Ethereum. So it's not yet in the daemon, but it is, I'd say, in the roadmap. So it's going to come bundled in the future with a Ceramic node, and Handshake resolver, and a lightweight Ethereum node, so that you can do some interesting functionality between Ethereum and Filecoin, and of course privacy encryption. And of course, new protocols. So like, it is open source, and we are at Fleek open to suggestions. So if there is a protocol that you want, or a feature that you want for your app, you can reach out to us, and maybe we will implement it. That will be very useful, I'd say. Now, this is the stuff that comes inside the Space Daemon. On top of that, it's the apps that you can build on top of the daemon. So like the first example of an app that you can build is going to be the Space app, which is for storage. But there is app 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can make your own applications, and you can tinker with the daemon itself to add functionality that you need. And just some quick ideas of stuff that you can build. Like the Space app, it is pretty much like Dropbox or Google Drive, but we go a step further by providing privacy and peer-to-peer. So like an idea of, if you're wondering of what you could build, any kind of Web 2 technologies could have a Web3 equivalent, but with the addition, with the value proposition of having privacy and censorship resistance through peer-to-peer. For example, Gmail, GitHub, Reddit, YouTube, and etc. So it's just an idea that you could do, or brand new ideas, because of course in Web3 there's a lot of innovation, like with DeFi and stuff like that. So just quickly, some resources that you can go. I will highlight them as we go in the presentation, but there's a Space Daemon documentation on docs.fleek.co where we document all the methods that you can use on the daemon, and there's also a getting started section so that you can get started quickly. Finally, there's also a GitHub repo. I'm going to give you a tour of the repo afterwards because it's some important repositories. There's a Space Daemon workshop. That's pretty important because in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through the workshop because it shows you how to use a lot of the methods, how to upload files, share, and I also, last week, I put in the example of uploading a file to Filecoin using the Powergate implementation. And finally, I also want to just say that we have a YouTube channel. You can go just search IPFS Fleek on YouTube and it will pop up. Well, all kind of videos on the daemon and also on hosting and storage and stuff like that. So now we can get started coding. I got here a rocket, so we can now get on the technical portion of this talk. I don't know if before I continue this, if there is a question, might be a good time to ask them while I prepare. Right, I don't hear questions. I'm gonna continue, I think.
I don't see any questions, but I'd love to know, Samuel, if you have a sense of how many different groups are already building using Fleek. Do you have a sense of the scale?
I know that in the HackFS hackathon, we had a very good entry that was called ShopFS, which is like a marketplace of files. And the idea was that it would encrypt the files, and then these encrypted files would then be sold and bought. So we have a blog post on blog.fleek.co that details that.
Great, I'll add that to the chat here. Oh, you have a question in the chat too.
Let me just open the chat.
How could OAuth SSO options benefit from Fleek and Space Daemon?
Well, the Space Daemon can hold all kinds of encrypted data, pretty much. That's the goal of it. So is there any website that contains a list of sites, apps built with Fleek? Yeah, maybe I just give you the link for that right now. Just the HackFS blog post so that we... All right. Okay, I think I will continue right now. Okay, so I want to continue. I'm going to show you how to get started. So here I got github.com/FleekHQ. That's our repo, our organization on GitHub, and it contains everything that you will need. For example, there's this repo that's important, this repo that's important, and this one for this class. So first of all, I'm gonna get started with this one because that's what you're gonna need for getting started. So here on the right, there's releases. Now that's where you will go to get the latest release of the daemon. So the daemon is gonna run as a background process, and with the JavaScript client, you will talk to it through gRPC. So if I go here on releases, Now it talks about the change flag, but here, wait, I'll go back on the most recent one. So this is the most recent release, the latest. So when you want to use the daemon, you're going to take the latest release and you're going to get the executable that you need. So the Space Daemon doesn't need to be installed. It's just an executable file. So like me, I'm on Linux. And what I would do is go on Space Linux, and I have 64-bit. So I would download this executable, and then I can change the permission to make it an executable, and I can just start it like that. And the daemon is going to start in the background. And that's how you start with the daemon. You can also provide a bunch of flags. For example, for the Filecoin stuff, you're going to need to provide a flag, which I'll show you afterwards. But depending on your platform. So if it's Linux, you can get this one, 32-bit, 64-bit. On Mac, it's Darwin, and on Windows, it's this one. And you might be wondering, what about if I want to make an app for the phone, on Android, on iPhone, something like that. So right now, the daemon is only a desktop application. So you're gonna need to do it on a desktop. But we are working on a light version of the daemon that could be used for like phone applications. So there's that. And also another thing that we got in the works, if you do not want to have it run like that on your computer, we're gonna have a service in the future that is like a hosted version of the daemon, which is very similar to like on Textile. They have this hub, and it's like hosted by them. So it's gonna be something like that, like to make it more easy for developers to interact with it. Now I'm gonna go back. I want to mention also that like the last release is 28 days ago. It does not contain the Filecoin stuff, which I'm gonna show you today. But it is here. If you type Filecoin, there's a Filecoin branch. And that's the branch that contains the Filecoin integration. So as you see, it's got it's changed pretty recently. So it's an active development. Now the other repo I want to show you is this one, the Space Client. So it's right here. So this is what you will use to communicate with the daemon. And it's a JavaScript client. So you're going to need JavaScript to communicate with the client using those methods. So here it gives an example of how to use it. So you it's an npm package, so you have to install that, like with the npm install @fleek/space client to get the client. And here you initialize it. I'm going to show you afterwards. And that's how you talk with the daemon. And I want to show you the last repo. It's this one. So this is the repo that I'm going to show you right now. So it contains an example of how to add a file, create a bucket, share a bucket, which is your encrypted data, and it contains the Filecoin integration. So if you want to follow along or play with it, it's a good example, a good resource. You can clone that repo. But
Samuel, question in the
go.
chat: is there a Mac version, the daemon?
Yes, I'm gonna go back here. Maybe it's a bit confusing because it's not called Mac, but here I am in the Space Daemon repo, plus the release, the most recent release. Oops, it's here, this one. So that's here, Darwin, That's Mac pretty much. So I hope that answered the question. So maybe it's a bit confusing that we call it Darwin, but it's like that. All right, so I was at the Space Client Workshop. So here, I'm gonna put in the screen this, so I can remove that. I got my console. And here I cloned the Space Daemon repo. So like I said previously, to run the daemon, you only need to download the executable in the releases. So the steps I'm going to show you right now, it's just temporarily, and it's just because of the because we need to run it from source for one, and second, we need to do the setup for the Filecoin, but it's only like temporary. So keep that in mind. So what you're going to do is do make. When you're going to do make, it's going to build the binary. So if I go in Space Daemon, I already did that previously, of course. I do ls. Here I got this space executable. This executable is the same thing that you would have gotten if you were just downloading the release. And if I were to run that, it's going to run the daemon. But of course, before that, I want to start Filecoin. So what I'm going to do is make local net up. That is going to start an instance of the Powergate running on local net. Now, I want to just specify that very soon, like the next update we're going to make, there's going to be a flag that you can give to the daemon to just get your Filecoin Powergate client started automatically. So like this step is just for the example, I would say. Also local net, I need to explain that too. It started, but local net. So soon it's going to be the main net of Filecoin that will be released. And the main net is like the real network. There's the test network, which is right now it's there. It's like allows you to mimic kind of the main net, but it's done for testing purposes or development. And the Filecoin that are on there have no value, so you can easily play around with it. Now the local net, it's an instance of the Filecoin network, but that runs in your local machine like virtually. So it's not so the Filecoin in it is not real, and it does not have the same block time or anything like that. It's only made for developers and testing and stuff like that. And if you ever did development on Ethereum, it looks a lot like Ganache. Like Ganache allows you to have a local instance of an Ethereum network, I guess. So this is the same thing. So it's just very useful for development. And that's what we're going to use to interact with the Powergate instance. Now I need to get my daemon started. So the make, I already did that. I'm going to remove it. So from the root folder, I'm going to go in bin space to start the executable. I'm going to give the Filecoin flag. So that is what in the near future is going to automatically start the Filecoin instance. And we also have Filecoin, no, IPFS node equal false. That's because, I think I mentioned that previously really fast, that the Powergate instance is a bundle of IPFS node and a Lotus node. Therefore, we remove the IPFS node that comes by default on the Space Daemon so that we can use the one that is on the Powergate. That is the reason why we do that. So I'm gonna go do enter. Now it's gonna get started, and very soon it should show daemon ready. When it says daemon ready, then that's when we can start interacting with it. Like it's not ready right now, but like in a few seconds, here. When you see this, it means that it's actually ready, that you can start interacting with it. Now here, I cloned the Space Client Workshop, which is the repo I showed you earlier that contains the examples. I'm going to do open it in my editor. Then I'm going to do, it's a React app. It's an Electron app, but you can also start it as a web app. So I'm going to start it as a web app. So I'm going to do yarn start, so now start the example application. And here I got this that appear on my second screen. That's the app. So now it's loading. Probably it's like building. Yeah. So it's building the app. But while it's building, I want to show you this part here. So in source client index, that is where we set up the Space client. So from this npm package at Fleek HQ /space client, which you can install via npm install at Fleek HQ /space client, or via yarn add Fleek HQ blah blah blah. That's gonna give you access to the package. You can then get yourself this client and create a new instance of the client. This instance of the client is gonna have this host, like the URL, which is how to access your client. So in this case, the daemon is running locally on 0000998. But of course, if you were like remotely, like you had the instance, a remote instance, I guess, then you would change that to like the remote instance. But in this case, is that. And we export it because this client is going to contain all the methods. So I'm going to show you now the app. It's here, and now it's loaded. I'm going to press F12 to show the developers tools, because it outputs a lot of stuff on the console. And that's where I just console log a bunch of information. So here we got our steps. So an overview of what we're going to show off now. Step 1 through 5 is, I guess, CRUD handling. So you're going to create buckets, add the stuff inside the bucket, look at the stuff that is inside the folders. So it's going to be that. 6 and 7 is going to be a small slice of our sharing features. And then here 8, I'm going to show the, going to interact with our Powergate instance. So first, I guess at point 1, we say that we're going to create a new bucket. So in the Space Daemon, all the data goes inside a bucket, and you can have multiple buckets. But this bucket, it's a bit like in like AWS S3. So you create your bucket and you fill this bucket with a bunch of content. So here is where you you create this initial bucket that you can fill with stuff. And the future functions are all going to need the bucket name, because we're going to specify that, okay, it's in this bucket that I want to perform this action. So the name is important. So I'm going to call it like Powergate maybe, or class. So it's going to be a bucket called class. I'm going to create bucket. So it says submit created bucket, and return a bunch of data. So it said created at the timestamp, the key, the name of the bucket, which is really important for future methods, the path, and etc. So that's the return data from the Space Daemon. So I'm going to show you in the code that. So
Samuel, I'm going to pop in. Santiago said he's getting an error, a connection refused error when he's creating a bucket. Is there a quick fix to that? He started the Space Daemon on his machine.
So he's not able to connect to the client, pretty much.
Maybe it's something we talk about offline, but I want to flag it if there's a quick answer.
I would need to know some more information, but if you start everything exactly like this, it should work, I would say. But there is something that you can do. So maybe if you previously interacted with the daemon, sometimes there can be some errors like that can pop. What you can do is here on your home, oops, home, there is a .fleek space folder. This, and it contains a bunch of stuff so related to the daemon. So if this gets corrupted, it could cause errors. So what you can do is like rm. I'm not going to do it because it's going to break everything, but you could delete that, and it might fix the issue. So hopefully that's the error. Oh yeah, and also yes, I think I know why it's saying that. Also, I'm gonna go back to the GitHub. I just remembered that because I'm assuming that Santiago is running the daemon from source instead of from release. So in my case, I have a bunch of environment variables that are needed only when running from source. So that's a big thing I forgot to mention. Is this here? All that stuff is a bunch of environment variables that are provided to you when you use the releases. But in this case, because it's from source, because of course it's the Filecoin integration that needs to be run from source, you're gonna need to provide all that stuff. And so you're gonna need to like go on Textile Hub and create an account and provide the API keys and the secrets and have them as environment variables. So yeah, that could be a bit annoying for running from source. But just know that once we make a release, you don't have to worry about that. You just run it normally and it is gonna work. So it's only right now that you have to do that. So so now that I thought about it, if you're running from source, I'm pretty positive that is why it's breaking. So I would say that, not error, it's nothing. I would say that Santiago, if you want to try the Space Daemon, you can try it. Either you add the variables, or you can you use the release and not use the Filecoin part. So. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the code here. Create bucket. So just to reiterate what we just did, where at number 1, we created a new bucket by providing a bucket name. And I'm going to show you in the code what was called in the client. It's here, create bucket. So so here, that's the button that we click. There's an unsubmit here. So what we did, we imported the client because as I showed you previously, I created an instance of the client that looks at port 9998, and which is our running instance of the daemon. And with a try catch, we call it an async function, which is create bucket, and we provide to it the name of the bucket here. And then here, there's a response object. Now, these response objects, you can call them to access a bunch of functions that are going to give you some information about the operation. Like in this case, we call the get bucket function, and it returned here on the app all that stuff over here. So that's something that is documented in the documentation, that all these functions that you can call to access various information related to the which are included in the response object. So that's to create a bucket. So now a bucket was created. Go back to the app here. So now a bucket was created. It's called the class. So now we want to do stuff inside the bucket. So we have a folder system. So that we are using, like, for example, in the Space app, that we organize our file in a file system architecture. So it's a way to like organize your stuff, or if you develop an app, you might want to expose this file system architecture. But the idea is very simple. It's just like a Unix file system. You can just say the name of the bucket and provide the path in which the file is located at. So in this case, I'm going to start interacting with this file system by creating a folder. So I'm going to say that class is the name of the bucket I want to create the folder in. And I'm going to provide the path of the folder. So from the root, I'm going to call it like my folder. So this was is going to do is going to create a folder called my folder inside the bucket. I'm going to do create. It says folder created. Just quickly run into the code here. It's here. So it looks very similar to the previous method, but instead of doing create bucket, we do create folder, and we provide the fields that we add in the little text fields, the name of the bucket and the path, and that created the folder. Here there's list directory. So now that we created a folder, maybe you want to look at the folder. Is it really created? So list directory is going to list the content of a directory, and the root of the bucket, the slash, is like the root directory. So in bucket, I'm going to write the name of the bucket class and slash. So I want to see in slash what is the contents. This directory, there is something. It's indeed a folder called my folder, and here it says is directory because indeed it's a folder. So we can see now that from this directory that the folder was correctly created. I want to show you also what is inside my folder, just really quick. So you would expect it's empty, but it's not empty. There's a file inside called .keep. That is just an invisible file that is created by the daemon to show that it is a folder. It's a quirk of how it works with the buckets. I'm going to show the code just really fast, but it's pretty simple. So here we called list directory with bucket and path. There's a response object here, and we call .get entries list. That is documented in the documentation, so don't worry. And we just map this information, and then we display it. So that's just what happened behind the scenes. Next, we want to open upload a file. So of course, now we want to want to put stuff inside the bucket where it's going to be encrypted. So first, I'm going to write class. This field here is the path of the file in my system. So beforehand, I prepared a file that is very small that we can upload. So it's going to put in the path. I called it my file. And then the path in the bucket in which I want to put my file in. So I'm going to put it like in my folder, maybe, since we just created that. I'm going to do upload. So if we see that it probably worked. If I do list directory, if it worked correctly, I should see my file. And indeed, there's two files. The keep file that I talked to you previously, and there's my file. So indeed, it got uploaded correctly. I'm going to show the code of the upload real fast. Upload files. So here there's client.add-items. We put in the bucket, the target path, and the source path. And you might wonder, why is there an array here? That's because in one, by calling add items, you can add multiple items with one method call. So that's why it's an array. In this case, we do only one. So that array is going to have only one element. And the function returns a stream. So if you don't know what a stream is, it's in actual fact of Node.js. So you can lead, it's a normal Node.js data stream. So you can just look at the documentation of Node.js if you want to learn more about it. But basically, on data, once data is uploaded, you can have access to it. Okay, so now open bucket. I'm going to do it a bit faster because I want to have time here. So now that I have a file called my file, I want to be able to interact with that, to open that file. So it's encrypted in my bucket, but I want to look at the content. So that's where open bucket file comes in. It's going to unencrypt the file for you so that you can see it. So I want to get my file. It's the class bucket, the path. I'm going to copy paste this one. I'm going to open. Could not open. Oh yeah, it's not the right path. It's / my folder / my file. Open. And now it returns a path. And that is where the daemon decrypted the file and copied the file. So that is next to my executable. So if I copy that, I go back to the console, maybe this. I'm going to do cat. And the path, do enter, I see that indeed there's something that is returned because that is the content of the file that I uploaded. So we see that that's what open file does. All right, I'm going to go to the sharing right now because of time. So share bucket. So we have sharing capabilities in the Space Daemon. For example, in this case, I can share my bucket with someone else. And when that person is going to do a list of all the bucket, is going to see that bucket. And you will be able to get the files from it. So I'm going to show you how it works really fast. If you do share bucket, I want to share the class bucket. Here, it returns a bunch of information. We have key, bucket, the name of the bucket, and addresses. So if I want to share this bucket with someone else, I can take this data here and send it to this other person. And that person will then do join bucket. This person will copy the name of the bucket, class, will copy the key, like this here. He's gonna copy the addresses. And then the person is going to do join bucket. Now, I'm not going to do it because I'm not sure what happens if I join my own bucket. I don't know if it breaks the daemon or what. So I'm not going to do it. But that's how a person can join a bucket. And now that person has access to the files and everything. In the future, we're going to have some access control. So maybe you share with a person, but that person, you only wanted to like see the data or modify the data. So you can limit what the person has access to in the future. I also want to mention, considering sharing, I'm going to open the documentation here, docs.fleek.co, Space Daemon, getting started. And I'm going to go in sharing. I just want to show that this share bucket is a very low-level method. We also provide other methods so that might be more convenient. For example, you can share via email. You can create a file link. You can share via identity because we also come with an identity system. So for example, with your public key, you could assign a username and email. So this is just more for like convenience. So if you have an app that you build on a Space Daemon, you know, the users don't really have to want to deal with keys. It's like a bit abstract. So you can have a user, email, stuff like that. And it can be used to share also. And so that's the documentation, by the way. All our methods are here. So I encourage you to come and see the documentation for yourself. All right, now I'm going to show you the Powergate. So I would just want to add a disclaimer first, is that we're still adding some more stuff to it. Previously, I said that a big use case of the Powergate is that we want to upload your encrypted files to the Powergate. So right now we need still to create those methods that we can expose the files in their encrypted form, and also provide a method so to recover the file from its encrypted form. So that's like a work in progress. But for this the way it is right now, I'm just going to show you how to upload a file in general. So it's going to be just a file that I will choose and upload it. So let's just try to send something. I'm going to do choose files. I'm going to take this file here, my file, and I'll click upload. So let's just decorticate. Let's just analyze the stuff that is returned, and then I'm going to go show you in the code what is happening. So here, that's the content of my file that I've logged to the console, showing the balance. And here it creates a job. So that's because on Filecoin, it takes a long time before the act of uploading to Filecoin takes place. And that's why we are tracking that job. Now, the job failed after a while, but that is due, like we did an update recently, and I think it broke something. But previously, when I tried it, it worked. It showed a job success. And here, the retrieved file, I'm just showing what the file looks like. So I want to show you in the code what is executing that. So here, I can go to Powergate. So first of all, the Powergate instance is started by the Space Daemon, but we can interact with it using like the Powergate JS client. So here, there's two packages that are important. There's this one, create POW, is going to create your instance of the client. And also there's this one that is important, is just to be able to track the state of the upload to Filecoin. So let's go to the code. Here on line 10, I am calling localhost port 6005. Just a quick disclaimer. It's port 6005 for the Space Daemon instead of port 6002 for the Powergate. So like the Powergate by itself, when you run it, it's gonna go through port 6002 by default, but our version on the Space Daemon is on port 6005. And here we do create POW. That creates an instance of the Powergate client that's gonna allow us to talk with the client.
Samuel, we only have about 5 minutes left before we start to lose people, but I did want to just point out a couple more questions. Adrian asked whether you can hide information in sharing mode, like partly sharing without reorganizing files.
Yeah, we have, well, not on this release, but I know that on our dev release, that I don't know when it's going to be released, that as stuff that you can share files instead of the whole bucket. Because right now, as you can see, there's like share bucket. So if you have a bucket with a bunch of stuff, it shares everything. But we also have stuff we can share only one file. Is there another question?
I'm going to post some just some links in the chat for how to keep in touch with us and with Samuel after this event. So, you know, and also please throw into the chat if you have any future session ideas, things you want to learn how to do and build on the Filecoin network. Throw those in the chat because we will take your suggestions seriously.
Okay, so I'm going to show you with the code really fast, because there's like 5 minutes left. So here, we're converting our file to a buffer so that we can put it on Filecoin. We create a token, which is like the session, the token that identifies our instance. So this is something that you do only once normally, so you don't have to do it a bunch of time. Here, I just kind of showcase that there is some wallet management included in the Powergate client. So you can create a new wallet and you can ask the balance, how much there is of Filecoin. I want to say in the local net, you do not need Filecoin to upload a file. That's really important. And that's only because of local net. So it's for development. It's not meant to be a real Filecoin network. So that's why I have zero balance of Filecoin in my wallet, but I was still able to make a deal with the virtual miners. So that's just an important thing to mention. Here, you can set the configuration of your Powergate instance. So I want to mention here, this configuration as hot and cold. So this is because, like I said previously, Powergate is an IPFS node combined with a Filecoin node. Now, the idea behind that is that the IPFS node is what is going to be used to send file, almost like a CDN, and the cold is like cold storage, which is where, which is Filecoin basically. The idea is you download your file from Filecoin, and through the IPFS node, you can then send it around. Here, like in T1, we are caching the data in the IPFS node by running stage, and it returns the CID. That is a necessary step before it can be uploaded to Filecoin. And this stores it to the IPFS node. Here is where we are actually pushing to Filecoin, and it's returning a job ID that we are tracking over here. So whether it is canceled or failed or success. And here, we get the file using the CID. So the thing I want to just explain about that is that Powergate, when you ask it a file, it first starts by looking at the IPFS node. If it is on the IPFS node, it downloads the file from the IPFS node. If it's not in the IPFS node, it's going to ask the Filecoin network. That is why here it was able to return the bytes, the file itself, before the job was completed, because it was getting it from the IPFS node since we had staged it. And that's how you do all the Powergate implementation works. So I think time is up. So I'm gonna stop it right there. So I want to first of all to thank everybody to be there for this masterclass. I hope it was useful to you and that it gives you some idea about how you can use the Space Daemon. And I also want to thank everyone at Protocol Labs for organizing this event. I know it was a lot of work, so I want to say thank you to that.
Thank you, Samuel. This was really helpful and interesting. And truly, thanks to everyone for joining us. We would love to hear more, as I said, about what you want to learn to build. So if you hop into the Filecoin Slack, you can find me there, Rachel Horn, and we'll keep these master classes going. Thanks again, everyone.